Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, and today we are back with our second blind review of One Black Clover, which will be covering the second arc, which I believe has a name this time, so good on it. It's called the Dungeon Exploration Arc, and it was quite an interesting experience actually. The arc begins in such a basic place with a whole ton of shonen cliches, but by the end we have this really tightly packed bit of story where nothing seems wasted. No character, no action, no dialogue is extraneous, and it builds up to explore one core idea, which is family. It was all really well done for the most part, although I do have some issues, of course. But before that, please do let me know if you are enjoying these videos by clicking the shiny red subscribe button, which will allow you to receive maybe regular Black Clover content, and also shove a like on this here video because out of fear of spoilers, I probably won't be looking at comments. So those are the two ways that you can let me know if you want more of me reviewing The Yelling Child. But the premise of this arc is pretty mind-blowingly simple. It's basically we finished the game tutorial and now we're off all on our own into our first dungeon, hurrah! Which is actually a dungeon of pretty monumental importance because this short secondary arc gets quite complicated quite quickly because there are actually three factions interested in this newly discovered location. One of which is the Black Bulls featuring Asta, Noelle, and the previously unexplored Luck. But we also have the Golden Dawn involved, another trio with Yuno and two others. But in addition to that, we also have a faction from a rival country, the Diamond Kingdom, which present our two main antagonists, and from there it's just a race to see who can get to the dungeon treasure first, with plenty of conflict between each of the groups. It's a very straightforward story that mostly derives its depth from character interactions and flashbacks, lots and lots of flashbacks. And I want to begin with Yuno actually. He disappeared very early on in the first arc and I wasn't quite expecting to see him again so soon, but it was a very pleasant surprise. For the main rival character dude, he's extraordinarily likable. And I think I said something along these lines in the last video, but the quiet, cool looking, super talented teenager is very rarely a character that is meant to be immediately likable. Usually they're incredibly arrogant, need to have some sort of sense smacked into them quite physically via some punching or something. But probably one of my favorite moments of this arc was when Yuno was talking to Klaus and even issuing him with a warning not to underestimate Asta. Which is nothing new, he did do similar things in the previous arc, but it's still satisfying to see the undeniably most talented person present going, no, you don't understand, make sure to watch out for that protagonist. I like the feeling of respect there. Plus, seeing Yuno's wind magic is always a pleasure. Of all of the brands introduced so far, I think I like this one the best. There's just something so beautifully sharp about how the wind magic is drawn. Like, it's ornate, but it also exudes power. Unlike, say, the plant magic, which is very ornate, but also very docile, or the lightning magic, which was powerful, but not hugely visually appealing to me. And just while we're on the topic of magic, this arc gave me what I was desperately craving from the previous, which was a vague explanation of the magic system in Black Clover. It confirmed that mages require mana, which, yeah, sure, it might seem like an incredibly obvious thing to say, but I don't recall it being mentioned at all previously, so it's just good to confirm that rather than assume. The thing that excites me most though is this diagram that shows us all of the different magic possibilities, which are based on the four elements and even mixing them together, like how, for example, mist magic sits in between water and wind. I live for stuff like this. When it comes to magic, I crave rules and structure because it's so easy to get lost in poorly created systems. I also really like that a decision was made not to reveal every magic type immediately. There's a lot of question marks on this diagram and it makes me want to keep reading to discover what they all are. It creates nice intrigue. And also you need the structure of rules in order to enhance the drama when you decide to break said rules, which actually happens in this very arc with our main antagonist, Mars. And may I just say that both Mars and Lotus are roughly 1 billion times better than the antagonist of the last arc, who I still only know as Ice Magic Man, because I was never given a reason to care about him whatsoever. Mars and Lotus are very different. Starting with Lotus, he has a captivating personality. He's outwardly casual, but also wildly intelligent and highly determined. He also has the perfect magic affinity being smoke, which suits his character really well because I felt like I could never get a solid grasp of Lotus. He just seemed to put up shroud after shroud, and I didn't really feel like I knew who he was until the end of the arc. Whereas almost every other character we've met in the series thus far has given me a strong first impression that hasn't been subverted as of yet. What I really liked was seeing Lotus's little character info page and discovering that his likes were his wife and daughters. In fact, this page is everything because we now know that he is a dedicated family man and more than likely just fighting to do what's best for his family and, I guess, his kingdom. It makes this conflict significantly more interesting because he doesn't seem to be a bad guy in the traditional sense. In fact, no one really seems to be a bad guy in this arc. Everyone's just doing what they think is the right thing that needs to be done. And if anything, after learning of the stories behind our antagonists, it really does make me wonder if the Clover Kingdom might be the real bad guys overall. Then again, I don't know because there was some pretty sinister crap going on with Mars, someone who I was scared of being another stoic, characterless existence when he first appeared, but I was quite pleasantly surprised. And he's also obviously who I was referring to when I said the rules of magic were introduced to be broken, as it is established established that mages can only, generally, have one affinity under their command, but Mars wields two: mineral magic and fire magic, which is the result of a tragic and horrific situation that I like to call the Azumi dilemma, because that's where I first experienced it. And Azumi is basically a film with the premise of raising a group of assassins since childhood, and then having their final test before graduating being to kill their best friend in the class. Which I guess, yes, sorry, spoilers for like the first 5 minutes of Azumi, but whatever. It's not a new idea, and I'm sure that it was done long before Azumi, but it's always effective and it's quite heart-wrenching to read, especially because they play up the betrayal of Fans, who immediately makes to kill Mars, but then we reveal that she only did that because she knew Mars would not be able to kill her otherwise, and it's just a mess of raw emotion. A really good mess that led to him inheriting Fana's magical ability through, I don't know, vaguely defined wizard science. So as cold and driven as Mars is, this added some much needed warmth to the character, and when we did see his split grimoire, which was very cool by the way, it gave me a good overall picture of who this guy is, and now I'm very excited to see both Mars and Lotus in the future, because they're almost like protagonists to me now. In fact, I'm kind of more interested in their journey right now than I am Asta's. But once again, that's what I love about this arc. There were no bad guys, strictly speaking, no enemy of the week to bring down, no evil for the sake of evil guys showing up. This was all just pure character conflict. It's basically what happens when you take, I don't know how many people were in this, like 8 protagonists with their own stories, and you put them together with a common goal to fight over. Each and every character in this arc is profoundly likable by the end, even Klaus, I should say, who started off as quite the pompous dick, and then eventually profusely apologized to both Asta and Yuno for looking down on them. That was a lovely moment, and as a result, I want to see more of Klaus now. And the broad idea that connects all of these characters, with the possible exception of Klaus, I guess, is family. At the center of this family idea are, of course, Asta and Yuno, who we have a brief flashback of, coming to the decision that because neither of them had a family to call their own, then they would just treat all of their friends as family, starting with each other, which, yeah, that's nice. But that also makes these two the solid core that binds and enlightens everyone else. Meanwhile, Noelle has a fairly obvious family issue at hand because we encounter Mimosa, who sounds delicious, and they have a bit of a noble tiff before coming together at the end. As mentioned before, Lotus is revealed to be a family man, and by the end of the arc, Mars has even made the first step towards building that potential familial connection with Lotus. But also, the Mars and Fana story very much mirrors the Yuno and Asta situation, two parentless children brought together, albeit in a much more tragic manner. And there is another super obvious exploration of family as well with Luck, and I've held off talking about him because I think this was by far the least satisfying part of the arc for me. I do like Luck quite a bit. He has this whimsical, battle-hungry nature, which gives me some serious Neferpito from Hunter x Hunter vibes. In fact, there's even a panel where he gives off those same sort of Pito crazy eyes. But he has a very hastily put together flashback about his mother not appreciating him until she discovered his one talent, which is fighting. So for reasons, she incepts him with the idea that he needs to keep fighting and winning, which is an interesting idea actually. This deeply rooted desire to keep fighting into eternity simply to earn the approval of a parent. There's really quite a lot you could do with that. However, in this arc, Luck's childhood trauma and established way of life is flipped on its head within like 2 pages. Like, it goes from Luck thinking to himself, I have to keep fighting and winning or else my mother won't accept me, and if I don't have my mother, then I am completely alone. And then like a page later, he sees Asta and goes, well, you know, except for that guy, he's my family now. And to me, it feels extraordinarily rushed. Like, I get that Asta has his dramatic semi-speech about Luck being his friend, but even that seemed a bit rushed. I mean, you met this guy like, what, a handful of days ago maybe? I think this might have worked if it wasn't Asta who led to Luck's realization, like if it had been another member of the Black Bulls whom Luck had been with for a much longer period of time. Because in the end, I just have a really difficult time buying that the screams of a 15-year-old child that you met a couple of days ago can immediately break through a lifetime of deeply rooted psychosis, but then again, it is a shonen series, and not everything can be a deep exploration. In the end though, whatever. Luck's story still fitting quite nicely with the overall theme of the arc, so it's forgivable. In regards to some important story-related things though, let's get back to Asta and Yuno. Something that really intrigued me at the beginning of this arc was the idea of seeing this treasure hunt as sort of a test race for the ultimate goal of becoming the Wizard King. Something low-key with minimal stakes, but representative of a larger journey to come. And I may, and probably I'm just talking complete crap here, but I can see this small arc evolving into a grander representation. Asta and Yuno go their separate ways again, fight for newfound family, friends, and I don't know, they'll need to eventually come together again to face some sort of great opponent on a more apocalyptic scale, before being left to decide amongst themselves which one will become the Wizard King, in a similar manner in which they needed to decide which of them would get the dungeon treasure, which turned out to be both. Yay. Oh, and actually the treasure itself was very, very important, by the way, because both Asta and Yuno seem to have received their own individual upgrades. Yuno seems to have acquired some sort of insanely powerful scroll fairy ? Which I guess now more or less mirrors Asta's bird familiar, who has a name now. It's Nero. I like it. All hail Nero. But Asta also appears to receive some sort of upgrade in the form of a different sword, which very notably saw him use magic for the first time, I think. And I don't quite know how to feel about this. I guess it's heavily implied that he borrowed the magic from Noelle, and it hasn't been elaborated on yet, but still, I was very keen on keeping Asta as a pure anti-magic existence. So we might be entering some very shaky territory now, where the power of friendship allows Asta some sort of access to the magic of his comrades that he's met along the way. Which, I don't know, look, I should reserve judgment until there's a solid explanation, but the whole thing made me feel a bit iffy. As did our brief glimpse of Golden Dawn Leader Man. If he's not some sort of grand enemy, then well done to Tabata for putting up this good front, because he's just so damn nefarious. Like when he's thinking about Yuno and going, yes, we need him to grow stronger. And it's just one of those things that reinforces my previous thought about the real bad guys, or maybe they're not the neighboring nations, and maybe it's the pinnacle of the Clover Kingdom itself. And it's a bit harder to tell in regards to the Wizard King, who has now taken a much more active interest in Asta, which was very quick. It's chapter 11 and already Senpai has noticed Asta, which is something else I don't necessarily like, but it is still too early to judge. All in all though, this arc was pretty surprisingly great. After the first chapter or two, I thought it would be a stock standard action piece that was designed to do very little, but provide fights and harp on about friendship in the way that shonen often does, but it accomplished a fairly incredible amount actually. It introduced and built 5 new characters, all of which I am very keen to follow, which is not an easy task to accomplish in 11 chapters. And I suppose as a result, at least one of those characters does feel quite rushed to me, obviously being Locke, and maybe Mimosa. I didn't talk much about her, but there wasn't that much to say, to be honest. But the others were given quite a perfect amount of time and space to develop, and overall it was just really good, super tight, and I think I'm looking forward to reading more. But that pretty much does it for this blind review of the Dungeon Exploration arc. And what do you guys think? Please do leave your thoughts in the comments below, or even join my Discord server. And if you're keen for some more Black Clover content, then please do go and check out some of my other videos, or even subscribe to the channel for very maybe regular Black Clover goodness delivered straight into your YouTube feed. But for now, this has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time.